Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center. The most important ingredients to sustaining health and wellness are the resources and tools that help you live a vibrant and healthy life. At San Juan Regional Medical Center, the goal is to promote health by making sure those resources are available. Find the path to the best life at lifebetterhere.com. San Juan Regional Medical Center. Better is our mission, improving lives through personalized health and care.
Ahead, turn right.
Isn't it nice to have a little help getting where you're going?
Your destination is ahead and 300 feet.
When navigating life's challenges, the San Juan County Navigation Center can help you with navigating housing, navigating transportation, navigating medical providers, and more. Learn more online at sjcnavigate.net or call 505-636-7110. The Navigation Center, connecting to resources, empowering lives.
You have arrived at your destination.
I'm back in Studio A with my guest this morning, as I mentioned, someone who regular listeners and viewers of KSJE might just recognize. Welcoming to KSJE this morning in her capacity with San Juan County, Megan Cullip is here this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad you found your way here.
It was difficult to navigate.
Yeah, okay. I see what you did there.
Yes.
Got you. You are here in your official capacity as the San Juan County Community Health and Social Services Director.
Correct.
And that puts you in charge of the Navigation Center, which is the new name because it has new duties and new things that it offers to the community from the old San Juan County Mental Health Resource.
Mental Wellness Resource
Mental
Center.
Wellness.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten the name because it's old.
Well,
we don't use it anymore.
It's over, yeah.
But anyway, but now it's all about the Navigation Center. And so this is Mental Health Awareness Month, the month of May. And so talk to me a little bit about the importance of our mental health and reaching out for help maybe when we need it.
Sure. So mental health is integral with physical health. I mean, for a long time throughout history, people sort of divided that. They talked about issues affecting the mind and then issues affecting the body. But now we know that those issues are really interconnected. If something is going on with your body, it's going to affect your mental health. If something's going on with your brain, it's going to affect your physical body. So that's the first thing I would say, is that it really is part of your holistic health.
We should think about it like that. And some people still maybe don't. There's still kind of a stigma. Maybe
well, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Stigma is very strong. It's actually the primary reason that people don't reach out when they're struggling, is the stigma surrounding these various mental illnesses. And I use the phrase mental illness freely because that helps us couch it within our physical bodies, right? When we have a stomach bug, we have an illness.
Right.
If we are suffering from depression or psychosis or any of that, or anxiety, we have an illness.
So like a physical illness, and pardon me for interrupting you, but there are various levels of illness, I guess. And that's the same with mental illness. Is that the idea?
Yeah,
then?
absolutely.
If I have just a little something, I twisted my ankle or something, and I can limp along, that's a less serious physical illness than if I broke my leg and have a compound fracture or something like that and need to go see a professional to get it taken care of. Same with mental illness, I think is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, there's gradations or sort of a spectrum, if you will. And that's why we have different categories. We have sort of low-grade anxiety, or maybe it's social anxiety, and the help that you need is to learn how to navigate social systems, all the way to maybe it's full-blown psychosis, and you're imagining reality that is different than actual reality, or you're hearing voices or stuff like that. And so, yeah, so to your original point, stigma does impact people's desire to get help.
Right. But people have no, here I go interrupting you again, but people have no problem picking up the phone and making a doctor's appointment for
Correct.
a twisted ankle or something, whereas they may, and they shouldn't, have a problem picking up the phone and calling for a mental health illness.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's why, again, it's important to just see these things as part of your body.
And the same.
And the same.
I mean, almost the same level, I guess, is what
Total,
you're saying.
total same level. And nobody should feel that anxiety about saying, hey, I have something going on. There are professionals to help folks, and there are different levels of professionals as well. Maybe if it's a medication issue, it's a psychiatrist. If it's a counseling issue, it's a counselor. And frequently it's both of those things, depending on what you're struggling with.
Sure. Sure.
So, yeah.
And we have those resources here. Some people may say, well, I'm struggling, but gosh, I don't think anyone's here in this community that can help me. We're a smaller community, so I'll just grin and bear it and deal with it my own way.
Great, yeah, which is just a really miserable way to live. If you are not receiving help for these things that impact your daily living, that's a hard life to have. We do have providers here. We have less providers than, say, in New York City or Chicago or something like that. But we do have providers. We have doctors here. We have counselors here. And it can be difficult to find the right fit.
Right.
But
they're
those
here.
professionals exist.
And help
yeah.
is available.
Right.
And that brings me back to your job at
Correct.
the Navigation Center, because one of those primary functions, I think, is to help people navigate to that right connection to help them with whatever they're dealing with.
Right. So the Navigation Center the purpose is to navigate resources. So what we offer is, we know all the resources out there. And we continuously try to learn about new resources coming in.
Sure.
So we're like
you try to stay on top of that.
Correct. So
Yeah.
we're like the resource bank. So, and B, we also offer case management. So some folks that come in, they just need us to say, yeah, call this person. They can make the phone call. They're off on their merry way, like problem solved.
Right.
Some folks come in and they have more needs than one, or maybe, and this isn't pejorative, but they might be lower functioning people, meaning that it's a little harder for them to make that appointment and get there and all of that.
Sure.
And they need a lot of follow-up. Like they need us to call and say, how did it go? Do you want to go back to that person?
Well, maybe that's why they haven't called before, because I need help, but I don't have transportation to get to the help.
Right.
Or I can't figure out how to pay for the help, or if I need to
Right.
pay for the help. And so that's where you could help
Right.
them as well, then, the
Right.
navigation stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, we have predeterminers, which is a Medicaid thing.
Mm-hmm.
So folks that go through that, and it's really intense training, and then they become sort of deputized to make the call as to who applies or is eligible for Medicaid and,
Yeah.
and can get them on to Medicaid. So that's another thing, is navigating health insurance. I mean,
Oh, my gosh.
it doesn't matter how high functioning you are, medical insurance is confusing and difficult to navigate. So
Right.
that could be part of it too, to your point of how to pay for it. So that is what we exist for. And we see a lot of different types of people with a lot of different types of needs. We get some calls that are pretty interesting, and that navigating that need is a lot more difficult because
Sure.
they're just complex cases.
But you do it.
But
You
we
have
do
people
it.
to do
we
it.
do what we do what we can.
And you can find the resources if they're available to help those individuals. And I
Right.
guess if there are really specialized resources, I guess you can tell them that too.
Sure. Like, for example, there is a counselor in San Juan County who specializes in autism. So, and that's not a specialty that every counselor has.
Right.
And so we know, hey, if it's this issue that's going on, let's tap into this specific resource. So there's even that level of knowledge,
Nice.
whose specialty is what. So we do the best we can. I would say normally we could at least do something, even if we can't solve the whole problem. There's at least something we can chip away at.
Right.
So
Good. Nice. And so this is a relatively new, again, reorganization of the former Mental Wellness Resource Center, and so you've been open now in a new location for, I'm trying to remember when the ribbon cutting was, a few months ago.
January.
Okay, since the first of the year, give or take. And so how's it been going?
It's great. So in the impetus behind changing our name, one is it was a lot harder for people to remember Mental Wellness Resource Center.
Case in point.
Yeah, exactly, which we saw earlier.
Yes.
And B, it could have created some stigma because people thought, well, I don't have a mental illness, so I don't need to go there, or whatever.
Sure.
And with the Navigation Center, it's stigma-free. It's just saying I need to navigate whatever I'm navigating. And we also discovered that the resources we were offering were broader than just the mental health piece.
Yeah, right. There's more to it than just that, right? There's physical health and other things too that you can navigate folks toward.
Yeah, our top two primary needs over and over again from its inception is housing and transportation.
Okay.
And usually some sort of mental illness or inability to work or something is undergirding those issues.
Sure.
So.
Gotcha. And again, kudos to San Juan County, who saw the need for these types of services, and that's what got us the Mental Wellness Resource Center and now the new Navigation Center to put kind of the money where their mouth is to say we need to help some of our folks in our communities, and let's do it this way.
Right. So in 2019, there was a gap analysis, and that was funded by, it was a behavioral health gap analysis funded by the Commission of San Juan County. And what that gap analysis did was it analyzed, it interviewed, it looked at the data, and it said these are your top four. These are your top four issues. One, which we can talk about, was a crisis triage center. One was resources for youth, which is still something that we're working on. And one was case management, and one was providers, recruiting and retention of providers.
Okay.
So that resource center was something that the commission said, we can do that like next year. That's something that's a low-hanging fruit, really. We can establish that. And so by 2020, which is pretty shortly thereafter that gap analysis, they opened their doors. Initially, they were housed in the Aztec Administration Building. They discovered that, hey, the hub of resources is really Farmington. It's the bigger town. It's where most of the people congregate that might need these resources. So the hospital, San Juan Regional Medical Center, offered their building, which is right across the street from the emergency room.
Right.
And that's where our building was.
Right.
And then recently we moved over to the Presbyterian Medical Services building and changed our name all at once.
Right.
So,
but still in that same kind of medical campus area of Farmington, if you
Right.
will. So if folks are going to the hospital or going to that side of town for an appointment or whatever, they can get to you a bit easier, obviously, than if you're in Aztec or some other place.
Sure. Yeah. And it's where a lot of social services
Right.
reside. So it's like kind of close to the not Social Security office, but the Income Support Division office
Right.
where people go. It's closer to Daily Bread. It's closer to some of the shelters. So, yeah.
Right. But again, this is available to anybody. It doesn't matter your economic status or whatever. These services are available to whomever. And
Absolutely.
folks can go down to the PMS campus there, the Presbyterian Medical Services building, and walk in and get help or call and get help. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely whoever you are, whatever's happening,
Right.
you're welcome to come.
Got you. And so with that, and with just the 5 months or so that you've been open in this new location with these new kind of enhanced navigation services, if you will, you've been able to help a lot more people, you think? Is the word getting out about the new location and the new things you're able to do? What are you hearing from the community that you're serving?
Yeah, so I definitely what the data shows is utilization has been increasing over time. At this point, our clients that came to us at the Mental Wellness Resource Center know where we're at, and they can continue that case management.
Good.
And because it is such a solid location, we do see more clients. It's in the thousands how many people a year we're able to help. And yeah, so to your point, yes, there's been an increase in utilization to the point that most of our help is by appointment and not so much by walk-ins.
I see.
And that was a big change. You can still walk in, but there's a high chance that we're just going to have to schedule an appointment unless one of us is available to deal with that issue right then and there. And there's some triaging. What's the most urgent issue?
Right.
So.
Understood. But still, folks can still get seen or at least get talked to and talked with to find some kind of a solution to whatever they're walking in with, whether it's making another appointment in a few days from now or whatever to come back and see a counselor or whatever, or getting on with a therapist or whatever the issue is.
Right.
And so that's an important thing, I think, for folks to understand. And again, I still have to give kudos to the county for putting this all together. And I think some other community partners, too. There's Presbyterian Medical Services, and I think the hospital plays a role in some of these things as well, and the county and the city. And are there others involved, too, or is that pretty much the big four?
Well, so we...
I don't want to leave somebody out.
Yeah, so we have contracts with a few behavioral health service providers, and those folks do provide a crisis appointment, one per week.
Okay.
So that's been helpful, too. Some people are in a lot of trouble, and so...
So they don't have to wait several weeks to get in, right?
Right.
They can maybe get in within a few days.
Correct.
Great.
Well, yeah, and usually that same day, actually.
Nice.
As part of
even better.
The deal. Yeah.
Right.
So those providers are Cottonwood, ATB Behavioral Health, and Total Behavioral Health.
Okay.
So those have been really useful providers. So, yeah, I mean, those are the key players. As far as the hospital goes, the real benefit there is that they're a referral source. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship with a lot of different providers.
I got you. Very good. And I guess the other part of this, too, is that instead of folks maybe just showing up at the ER with whatever crisis they're dealing with, they can come to you now at the navigation center. And so that frees up resources at the emergency room for medical emergencies and things like that. Is that also part of the thinking behind putting this together?
Yeah, well, and that
it's a lot more
segues
expensive.
Nicely into the Crisis Triage Center, actually, because you are correct that people present to the ER for a lot of different things.
Sure.
Sometimes they're presenting to the ER because they don't have another place to go, and it makes more sense for them to come to the Navigation Center because the social workers at the hospital are working with people who have been admitted and to try to pave the path to discharge. And so it's more helpful if somebody is intoxicated, for example, to come to the Navigation Center and work out what the needs are, as opposed to let's sit in the ER for a long time. Then you have people who have a serious psychiatric crisis going on, and the ER is not as equipped to deal with that. Plus, yes, if you have a heart attack coming in, you're going to have to figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
So the Crisis Triage Center, which was pointed out in the gap analysis, is designed for psychiatric crisis. So that is something that is in process. We don't have one yet, but we are preparing for a Crisis Triage Center. Last year, we hired consultants who are in the business of setting these centers up. They did a whole analysis, a whole business plan from start to finish, what it should look like, how much you should pay for it, what to expect, that whole thing.
Okay.
We completed that process. We recently went to the legislature. The legislative session was in January, and they approved $7 million. 3.5 came from the governor, 3.5 came from the legislature, and $7 million was the seed money that we needed to build the center, to begin the process of staffing it and that kind of thing.
I see. Okay. And that's money dedicated to San Juan County?
Yes, specifically to the Crisis Triage Center. It's earmarked just for the Crisis Triage Center.
That's what you can use it for. Got it.
Right. So now that we have the money, the next phase is to hire the architects, figure out if the planned site is conducive to that center. I'm not at liberty to share where we think we're going to put it, but it will be a location it's a very good location for getting people to that center.
Okay. And so is that the next step, I guess, from what we now have as the Navigation Center, or would the Navigation Center remain, and this would just be an additional service in the community, having this crisis triage center?
This would be an additional service.
Okay.
So again, if you go back to those gradations I was talking about, the crisis triage center is, I am currently in a psychiatric emergency. I need to go to this place, this crisis triage center, to deal with that immediate pressing issue.
Somebody would see them immediately.
Immediately.
In that building, basically.
In that building, and it would be a medical professional.
Got it.
So it would either be a psychiatric nurse practitioner or a higher level, a psychiatrist would be available. It's set up in like a living room model, which is a fancy term for, it doesn't look like an institution. It looks like a living room.
Welcoming.
It's welcoming.
Non-threatening, those types of things.
Correct,
I guess, right?
Yeah. So no use of restraints or anything like that. It's really designed to, let's talk to this person. Let's get them the immediate help they need.
Okay.
And the Navigation Center is a lower gradation, which is, I need help navigating my next steps, but I'm not in current crisis.
Got you.
So, yeah.
So it'd be a little, and so it sounds like the crisis triage center is a little bit more specified for mental health situations.
That's
than
the only
Navigation
person.
Center.
Yes, right. That's the only purpose of the crisis triage center. And again, that's going to help the ER. That's also going to help the jail, because
good point.
A shocking amount of folks who are detained in jail are really suffering a psychiatric crisis. That's why they committed the crime. Most of those crimes are lower level crimes. It's, I was trespassing while I was in a psychotic disorder, or while I was in a psychotic disorder, I was threatening and sort of an unwanted presence at 7-Eleven or whatever. And so instead of taking those folks to the detention center, law enforcement can take them to the triage center.
Gotcha.
And
so part of, I guess, the cost of the triage center is that it has to be staffed with these professionals all the time.
It's a big cost. Yeah. I mean, it's over $1 million a year when you combine taking care of the building and stuff like that, and then hiring the staff and taking care of them.
Sure. And do you foresee this being a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing, or as much as you can? I mean, I guess it depends on staffing, but is that kind of the ideal situation? Yeah,
so what we discovered from other crisis triage centers around the state, which there's really only two. There's one in Doña Ana County, and there's one in Santa Fe. And what we learned from talking to them is that you really need to start small and go from there. So yes, 24/7 would be ideal, but you have to look at the utilization of services. When are people coming in?
Sure.
And that's how you make that choice.
So maybe it's an evening thing or a weekend thing. Who knows?
Right.
But you would know that, I guess, pretty quickly from the data that you would see. So,
right.
So that's exciting that is in the works. And I guess, too, that opens up the other conversation about the cooperation from law enforcement, because they need, I guess, maybe understanding, and I think they're getting training already about what to do with people they encounter on the streets that may be in mental health crisis, and not taking them maybe to the detention center, but instead bringing them, at least even at this point, to the navigation center. Does that happen?
For sure. Yeah. So the county has a very strong relationship with law enforcement. So one piece of it is
the sheriff's office, which is already part of the county. But
the sheriff's office, and we have a behavioral health deputy in the sheriff's office.
Nice.
Whose entire responsibility is to take those calls. So he's specially trained. That's his role. His name is Dave Smith. He goes out and he handles those situations. And then
he can kind of analyze, I guess, maybe the severity of whatever the issue's on with that suspect, that person, that whatever, right?
Right. Some people just need somebody to de-escalate the situation.
Sure.
And some families or friends or communities just need the presence of a law enforcement officer to feel like the situation is safer and we can actually handle this person. Farmington Police Department has an entire unit of deputies that are responsible for behavioral health crises.
Okay. So they've already recognized this issue with
100%.
Our population, and then are trying to get, I guess, maybe direct these folks to the correct resources and rather just locking them up.
Yeah. So the Farmington Police Department and the Sheriff's Office will frequently call us and say, hey, we're sending you this person. This is what we think they need. Just be aware this is what happened. And so there's a good working relationship. And then there's the LEAD program, which is law enforcement assisted diversion, which the entire purpose of that program is to deal with people who have it's nonviolent crimes, but they have repeat offenses of things like trespassing is the big one.
Right.
And there's a case manager who follows that caseload and you can be on that however long you want. So if that individual says, I'm going to need help for the next 15 years, great. You have a case management for the next 15 years who will take you to your court appearances and just navigate all of that.
Sure.
So that's
Nice.
a very valuable program too.
Right. Well, and they've been on this program. They've been guests. We've talked about it here. So
Yes.
that's important to remember and remind folks about that interview is available on all of our platforms and things like that to familiarize yourself with that. But this is, I think, really exciting and really important information for folks to understand. I always think about, how we think about ourselves as a community is how we treat maybe the most needy among us. And this is another example of the county and the community coming together to really help those that are in maybe crisis and maybe just need some assistance from time to time. And so the Navigation Center is a great example of that, but it's for everybody. And now this new idea of the Crisis Triage Center, which is in the works, and it seems like the county has done a lot of the work of looking into it, studying it, the need for it, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and the state has come up with the money to make it happen.
Right. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. And a lot of folks, this is the society we live in, that a lot of folks are isolated. So maybe if I was in crisis, I would call a good friend that would help me navigate what's going on. But if you don't have that social support and it's just you and something really big is going on in your life, you need support.
Right.
You need somebody to help.
And we have it.
And we have it.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So, very good. Megan Cullip, we are out of time. I'm sorry to say.
We could have kept going for days.
We could have kept going for days, but you'll be back tomorrow for a different show, and so we will kind of keep going for days
Yes.
in that regard. But for folks who are listening and watching, just to remind us again where the Navigation Center is located. You mentioned it's at the Presbyterian Medical Services campus. I know it's located off of, the address is Broadway. You can also get to it from Murray Drive. The exact address escapes me at the moment.
Yeah. So it's 1001 West Broadway, and the tricky part about it is the campus has a medical and dental side, and then it has a behavioral health side.
Right.
Behavioral health side is called the Farmington Community Health Center. That's where we're at. And that door, the furthest door on the right, is where our logo is. That's the door you walk down the hall.
Gotcha.
Get to us.
Very good. But you can get to the location, transportation-wise, from either Murray Drive or Broadway.
Yes.
You can find your way through. So, excellent. Very good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work that you do in the county and at KSJE.
Thank you.
With both of your hats. So
Yes.
it's always great to have you here, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, very good. That is Megan Cullip. She is with me from San Juan County, representing the county today as the Director of Community Health and Social Services, my guest here on KSJE. Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.